Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we are looking at NBA Friday here. Got a good amount of games on the slate for you guys. We're going to be taking a look at best bets in this episode. Also have player props up in a separate one. So make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along with us all season. Also got the NFL player props up for week 17 after a pretty good Christmas. So definitely want to make sure you're checking that stuff out as well. But let's get into the hoops here on Friday, Nate, and jump right into your first best bet for the night.
Yeah, stars out, bets up here. Luka gonna miss a month with the calf strain, but I will take the Mavs here. Plus 1.5 or the money line, about the same price in Phoenix. Much different story when you lose a guy mid-game and when you know he's going to be out. We talk about this all the time with Embiid, and Luka now entering that Embiid status where he's just constantly getting injured. I wish the guy would just focus on his pregame routine and fitness and stretching, and he's probably just out there hamming it up because that's just who he is. He's a young guy, but I digress. I mean, the point is Dallas is still a very good team without him. In fact, they've won 5 of their last 6 with Kyrie in there and no Luka. They've won 8 of their last 9 on the road. I mean, if you discount the cup loss, I mean, then they're 8-2 in their last 10 on the road, 6-2 against the spread in those. And also they're 7-3 straight up after a loss. So yes, they started slow against Minnesota, but as you talk about, they picked up the momentum late, completely dominated that fourth quarter, almost pulled it all the way back. And I mean, they're an elite defensive team, and they're much better defensively when Luka Doncic doesn't play, which is not a huge surprise, but they just keep adding pieces on the wing. And that's going to be huge here with Grimes and Najee being able to throw them at Durant. I don't really think the Suns have much else. Like, what are they elite at? They're elite at mid-range, I suppose, and Dallas is 6th guarding the mid-range this year, so that's great. But yeah, you look at the lineups, the top lineups without Luka, basically 97 defensive rating plus 38 net in 32 minutes. So they're doing it on the defensive end. If you put Grimes in there and Najee instead of like Clay or Dinwiddie, we're talking a plus 50 net with the same defensive rating in 22 minutes this year. Both of those lineups do include Derek Lively, who's questionable. If you want to wait and make sure he's ruled in, I don't think you're going to lose any EV here. I mean, I don't think he's going to move the line that much, but he is pretty essential to kind of push some of your advantages, which is Phoenix's terrible center play. So if he's in there, really like this play. But yeah, I think either way, you're going to get some value on the Mavs.
Yeah, I can see that. I still have no respect for Phoenix, which is weird because there's no transitive property in the NBA this year, because I'm just segueing right into my pick of Denver covering versus Cleveland, even though Denver couldn't beat Phoenix the second time around with still no Devin Booker and blah, 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 blah. It doesn't look good, but this is going to be Denver at home as well. So I'm taking Denver plus 2.5. I'm taking 2.5 points for Denver as an underdog. There's not a team in the league that this team would have been underdogs to at home a year or two ago. And this is kind of where we are with them. Plus, they have Aaron Gordon out, which definitely not big deal. Not a big deal, I should say, for them with Aaron Gordon against Mobley and obviously and Allen. But I'm still not that worried about it with them at home. So, I mean, I wanted to say this is getting borderline disrespectful the way that they're dogs at home, but it's like close to almost borderline disrespectful. We're not quite there yet. They don't really deserve that level of respect yet, but they are 8-4 at home. They are 10-2 against the spread there. As long as the spread is about plus 4 MOV against the spread as well when they're at home right now. Cleveland's also better at home, and this has been the case for both for this matchup really in the series has been which team is home, and that team has been dominating and doing a lot better when they're at home in this series, and that's why it's basically been even between them over the course of the last couple of years. But I still think this is a situation where we're getting Denver playing better now at home, more to the pace that is going to help them also play defense, as they've slowed things down a little bit, enough to go from like the 5th fastest on the season in terms of pace to down to about like 20th in the last 5 games, as they're, like I said, improving at least a little bit in the defensive rating. Now, I think this game is still more ripe for an over than it is for an under between these two teams, so keep that in mind. But both these teams have slowed down the pace enough that I'm going with the Denver side here. For the Cavs on the road, it's not like they're bad. They're also 9-3. It's just that they're 17-1 at home, so it's hard to ignore how much better they are when they play in their own building. And like I said, home teams have won all four of these last games in this series. And for Denver, what I also like for them now is that they've actually started to play defense above the break. They seem to be a lot better playing defense against opposing guards and guys that are going to be the primary ball handlers up top, which is a position that they were just getting completely dominated by. If you look at them versus the primary ball handler in their last 5 games, they are back into the top half of the league, limiting points. They have the number one against the break, above the break 3-point defense as well over those last 10. And Cleveland is shooting the third highest frequency of those above the break threes, which makes a ton of sense, especially as they've gotten Max Strus back into the lineup. Finally have another 3-point shooter alongside Donnie and Darius Garland, and more of a spot up guy, which is going to be good against Denver. I like the spot up guys for Cleveland will probably have a pretty good night here as well. But I like Denver to cover. I like them to just put their foot in the ground and have a bit of self-respect tonight at home and defend their turf against the best team in the NBA right now.
Yeah, I mean, I like them to continue oscillating, which they've done a lot, right? I mean, it's just like after a bad performance, they're probably going to come back and look really good. So there's that. I mean, the last time they went to Cleveland and then they just laid an egg in Washington on the second part of that road trip. And since then, they've been pretty good, except for the occasional blip, right? I mean, Portland and then the back-to-back with Phoenix. But yeah, if they continue that trend, they should bounce back here. And the above the break 3 stuff is the key. So yeah, I'll take the points with the Indiana Pacers. Plus 12.5 is pretty crazy. I know it's Boston and they can shoot you out the gym, but don't think we're getting Porzingis or Drew Holiday in this game. So I mean, even if they score a bunch here, Boston break out of that offensive funk that we've kind of seen in like 3 of their last 4 games. I don't know if they're going to run away from Indy. I mean, Indy on a back-to-back, sure. I understand the large number because of that, but they've figured some stuff out here, man. They've played pretty good competition, and they had won 5 straight before that loss to OKC last night. In their last 8 overall, they're back to the old Indy. I mean, 120 offensive rating, 30 assists, 40% from 3. They're only -3 net rating on back-to-backs this year, so it's not like a massive drop-off. Last year, they were just fine. And Boston, I mean, it's more about just like, are they going to be able to cover this number? Because they haven't covered in 11 of their last 14 home games. It's just absurd. And in that span, I mean, yeah, they've fallen in love with the 3, of course. 52 threes, only 19 free throw attempts. That's not really how you beat Indy. I mean, or how you dominate Indy. You have to be physically aggressive, get to the rim. So maybe you look at Jaylen Brown in that sense as like, okay, yeah, he's going to do his thing. I know you've targeted that before against Indy, but they just always play Boston tough, man. I mean, -4 net rating in the last 9. That includes a sweep in the Eastern Conference Finals. So like, if you think Boston's going to come back with it after losing 2 in a row, I agree, but I think Indy kind of relishes these opportunities, and they just find a way to hang in this game. Even the last 5 regular season, it's basically been an even point differential since they got absolutely beat down in Boston, like really early last season. They've been like, yeah, we're not letting that happen again. Hallie wasn't in there. Few other guys who are now part of the team, including Siakam, weren't even there. And now, yeah, I think they have enough to hang around within single digits.
They should. They definitely should. Obviously, there's always 3-point variance with the Celtics, but I mean, I trust you when you go against them for sure in these moments where I feel like you're able to call the lapses as much as anything. And I wouldn't call it a lapse necessarily just because they might not beat the Pacers by like 13 or 14. But this is definitely a situation at Boston where I could see that the Pacers stepping up, and they've sort of answered the call recently, as you mentioned, getting back into the swing of things for this squad. So I do like them to be able to hang around in this game. 13 is pretty wild, but it's based on the Pacers, how they looked maybe a few weeks ago before this recent uptick. So I think this is kind of the final moment that you'd be able to get a spread like this, even against Boston at home. Although obviously with the way Boston played last game, they're going to be pretty pissed, I would imagine. So we'll see. But let me go ahead and go west and take the Clippers -4.5 against the Dubs, the Stephless Dubs, the Draymond questionableness Dubs. We'll see if Draymond's able to go, but we know Steph's out and we know GP2 is out. And GP2 was crucial for them so far in the games that they've played against the Clippers for that wing defense against either Norm Powell and or James Harden. And when you don't have him out there, you're just putting more stress on a few other guys. You're requiring, it just doesn't, well, first of all, they have Schroeder now. I guess I should also just take a step back and be like, well, they do have Schroeder, one of the best above the break defenders in the league for sure. So at least they have one stopper. But now they don't have, they're talking about needing like more Moses Moody. What happens when you don't have GP2 is that you need to bring in other guys who are just, there's big sort of blemishes on their resume in other areas. Like Moody, good defender, big, should be able to help out with Norm and with James Harden. But when you play him more, you're giving up more ball handling, more creation, right? The ability to have somebody like create and stay quicker than the other team. You lose that quickness essentially. And that's the problem with having to play certain guys when you don't have GP2 out there. I think it's going to be huge. And I think we're just getting an inflated record with Steph. I know this is a divisional game. And so the guys are going to come out to play, the backups who come in. And really, there's no such thing as a backup in Golden State anymore. There's a 10-man, 11, sometimes 11-man rotation where everybody's just an equal backup, all playing anywhere from 12 to 18 minutes essentially, other than like a handful of guys. But if you look at the way that they play without Steph this season, they have a very, very inflated record. They have inflated numbers all over the place because they played 5 games without Steph this year. They played really well against the Thunder, who played really poorly in that game against the Dubs, did not take it seriously when Steph was ruled out, obviously. Then they beat the Rockets, who they just seem to own in the style of play that they have. I'm going to give them a little bit of credit there, but not too much. And then 2 versus the Pelicans, starting Brandon Boston, Javonte Green, and Jeremiah Robinson Earl. So like, I just think there's some inflation that's like leading to us not seeing this number even bigger without Steph Curry. I think this should probably be closer to -6, -7.5, to be honest with you. I think the Clippers are that much better and that they will be trying, which is something that we do have to take into account for them is like, do they care? Well, it's a divisional opponent. Kawhi could come back, by the way. So like these numbers for the Clippers to win the division, which is not a good division, by the way. This pack division is definitely overrated. We'll put it that way, as it's super old and has a lot of guys that are on the downside, the backside of their career, right? So I think you add that extra motivation of like, it's like plus 800 or 700 for them to win the pack right now, just because they've looked so bad, but they're going to get Kawhi back. Like he's going to come back for, let's see how he looks, whatever. But the point is there's sort of a little bit more oomph for them to continue to try here. The rebounding is something that they should dominate, especially with Draymond out, his on-off court rebounding stuff, a rebound percentage of about 46% for the Dubs when he's off court right now. And I don't know if you can play Jonathan Kuminga without Steph, to be honest, because of the shot selection. Like you don't want it. I know he's been in trouble for taking shots away from Steph, but at the same time, if he's out there without Steph and there ain't nobody to keep his light more yellow than green, then they're going to probably be in trouble there too. So I just don't like this without Steph. Even with Schroeder, I don't know that he's just not there yet. So yeah, I like them to not be able to cover this and the Clips to win by at least 5.
Yeah, can I get you to co-sign on the under here? I mean, 212 is a little scary, but I mean, this offense is just terrible without Steph.
We lost the value. Yeah, we lost it was 118.5 or 218.5.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I'd be a little bit more.
If you got it early, sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, I did see the Dubs 8 straight unders as underdogs, and under in 13 of their last 17 overall, beginning when they only got to 201 with these Clippers with Steph Curry playing. So it is possible. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a scary number at this point. But yeah, I could see it being choppy and gross. Maybe taking the Dubs team total under just because we don't trust their offense at all without Steph Curry.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I would agree. It's going to be ugly and choppy for sure. The pace should stay a little bit lower, but we'll see. You could also just send guys. You could just be telling them to just fly down the floor and just try to create more possessions for the Dubs, knowing their offense is so inefficient against a good defense. We'll see how Kerr plays it. But yeah, either way, I don't think they're going to be pulling this one out. So that's all the time we have for you, though, in best bets here for the NBA. Also got Play a Props up in a separate episode, so make sure to check that out. Subscribe to that page, and also don't miss those NFL Play a Props here for Week 17. So until we see you next, happy betting.